task force officers. We're not releasing their body camera video as part of this. We are showing you the LMPD officers who were involved in this incident. The first is Detective Ben Derby, assigned to the Criminal Interdiction Division. Detective Jan Dykes, also assigned to the Criminal Interdiction Division. Detective Rob Ross and Detective Josh Trumbo, also of the Criminal Interdiction Division. And next we'll move on to the footage.
What you're about to view is body-worn camera footage from the officers who discharged their firearms. In accordance with LMPD procedure, the officers were placed on administrative leave. The LMPD Public Integrity Unit is the lead on the investigation. Upon completion of its investigation, LMPD will present the case to the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office for a final criminal disposition. A copy of the investigation will be turned over to the Kentucky State Police for peer review, and a copy will go to the Louisville Office of Inspector General. Please be advised that this statement is a preliminary account of what our investigation has revealed thus far.
On Saturday, January 4th, around 7:30 in the evening, the United States Marshals Task Force, as well as Louisville Metro Police Department, received information that the suspect wanted for shooting Orange County Sheriff's Deputy Zach Andre in Indiana on January 3rd was located in the 3700 block of Wheeler Avenue. Information gathered by law enforcement indicated the shooting suspect, Austin Shepherds, was in the backyard of a house, and our air unit was dispatched to the area. At approximately 7:30 in the evening, detectives from LMPD's Criminal Interdiction Division and members of the United States Marshals Task Force converged in the area with support from LMPD's air unit. The air unit located Shepherds in the backyard and began giving instructions to responding officers over the radio. As officers converged on the backyard, Shepherds opened fire on officers, firing several shots. 7 law enforcement officers, 4 from LMPD and 3 from the U.S. Marshals, returned fire, striking Shepherds several times. Officers eventually approached Shepherds, who was laying on the ground, and he was pronounced deceased on scene. Shepherds' handgun and narcotics were recovered from the scene. No officers or innocent civilians were injured during this incident. LMPD's Public Integrity Unit is the lead on the officer-involved shooting investigation. The Indiana State Police remain the lead investigators on the shooting of Deputy Andre. What you're about to view is video from our air unit and body-worn cameras from 4 LMPD detectives who discharged their firearms during this incident. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, I think I saw the figure just run to the backyard. Taller. I think it's just his head went to the basket. So that was right.
Behind what address?
Thing when we gave you.
Okay, 3723 Wheeler.
10-4. Ran on the 4 side to the backyard.
All right, everyone copy, right? And he's armed.
All right, boys, he's running. He's running to the alley right now. Carrying a backpack. He just threw something in the yard. He's in the back of 3723 right now. You guys are passing him. He's in 3723. Y'all just drove right past him. running up to the back of the house now.
Show K9.
He's standing between 37, 23, and 25, looking at the alley, leaning up against the trash can. He's pointing something at you guys. I can't tell if he's armed or not. Shots fired, shots fired.
Started forward, started forward.
Get cover, get cover. Hold fire, he's down. Shots fired, shots fired. Roll EMS this way. He's down in the backyard.
Everybody down! Hey, we're getting shield to quit shot! He's down!
Hey, I'm gonna reload. Get in this shit. He's down right there in the yard.
Hey, I'm getting my back.
Yeah.
Everybody else,
let me see your
hands! We need to arrest him!
He's down.
Hey man, let me see your hands! Austin, if you can hear us, let's see your hands! Let's see your hands! Hey, come to us, you got better field of view over here. Hey, is everybody good? Hey, all blue was good. Let's get a shield.
You don't want to push to him, we can. Yeah. Okay. Oh. Just gonna slide down.
Hey, let's get a couple of shields.
Okay.
Let's get it ready for
Guys, hey, you ready for shield?
I don't have my shirt. Yeah. Okay, hey, I've got one in my vehicle. I'm gonna go grab my shield. We have a shield over there. Stand by.
Hey, let's slide down.
You guys okay in the house? Stay in the house. Make contact.
Go to the front door.
Hey, we have two shields. Are we good?
Good.
Yeah, we shot him.
No, I know, we're good. We're good.
Moving up. Moving up. Let me see your hands, buddy.
Hey, I'm on your left. Still bumping up. Sir, I'm gonna get you.
Do not move.
Hold. Hold. Yeah, more lucky.
I don't have handcuffs. You got handcuffs.
I've got someone to show my best. Okay.
Take your police out yourself.
Hey, I got it. You want to shield that?
Yeah.
Shield them. Shield them.
Take your police 37 23 wheeler and out yourself.
Hey, Tesla, hang on. Hey, you get EMS over here. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, as it says, this is still an ongoing investigation. I think you can see from the video how dangerous this situation was, that the subject appeared to set up an ambush and attempt to shoot several officers again. And so we are very grateful that no one else was injured besides for the suspect in this situation. We've had the full cooperation of the U.S. Marshal's Office in this investigation. And just for your information, the full separated videos of each officer will be at the end of the YouTube video. So you'll have separate videos as part of that. So very, very proud of these officers, knowing the level of danger that of the suspect posed that they were looking for, and still were out there willing to put their lives at risk in order to find this subject. And so very proud of their work, very grateful that they're out there willing to do it, and they do it every day. So I'll open up to questions at this time.
Did shepherds know the people inside the house, and have they been charged with anything or any involvement?
So the question was, did shepherds know the people inside the house, and have there been any charges related to that of any of those people? Both of those houses were checked to make sure if there were anyone inside that they were okay. No one was injured. But as far as any connection between shepherds and the people in the specific houses, that is part of the investigation. I'll let Special Investigations Division take care of that part. Yes.
Hardin County specifically, you mentioned this manhunt whenever they got new drones earlier this week. I mean, how essential has that technology been? I mean, we saw it at the beginning of the video, but in dangerous situations like this, how much of a difference does a technology like that make?
So that air unit video was not drone footage. It was from our helicopter. And so the person that you heard talking on the radio, giving the description of where the person was, that was actually one of our tactical flight officers up in the helicopter. But we do have a drone program that we are still in the stages of growing, so that we can deploy them more rapidly to situations like this. But that amount of information is invaluable to be able to know positioning of suspects, seeing that suspect was pointing a gun or appeared to be pointing a gun at officers before they even arrived. You have to remember, when you look at that air unit video and then you look at that officer perspective on their body camera, they don't see the same thing. So you saw officers drive past that suspect who was pointing a gun at them. They didn't know where he was. So it's a very dangerous situation and could have ended much worse. But that type of information and intelligence is invaluable.
How many times does the suspect fire, and how many times did the officers fire back?
So how many times did the suspect fire and how many times did the officers fire back? I don't know. Have we ever answered that question?
I don't know.
We never have. We're not going to at this stage, because I'm not going to say the wrong number. Those are always complicated to kind of figure out and make sure that we have it nailed down. So that ends up being something that's part of the end of the investigation. I'd never want to give you the wrong number on that. We know that he fired multiple shots and the officers fired multiple shots back.
Was it just the 4 officers that fired from the body cameras that we saw, or were there other officers also?
So there were 3 others that were assigned to the U.S. Marshals Task Force. Yes. But that's up to their agencies to release that video. We have enough video that's to be able to give the public a good account of what happened. Yes, sir.
It was just the 4 LMPD officers who were firing, correct?
Yes, sir. And the other 3 were not LMPD officers.
Chief Humphrey, in previous officer-involved shootings, it seems that the officers have fired and then immediately run up to the suspect to render aid. Here it looks like they were taking a little more time grabbing the shields. Can you explain maybe why rendering aid wasn't as quick as we've seen in previous officer-involved shootings?
Well, in all honesty, I think sometimes we've run. The question was the difference in the amount of time to render aid, that we took our time on this one, whereas it seems like we've rushed up on others to render aid. And that's a learning point. So if you look, I do not want officers to rush up to people who just tried to kill them, right? We need to make sure that we have the scene under control and that we move up in a controlled fashion in order to take that person in custody, and that person is actually surrendering due to their injuries. So the last thing that I would want is for an officer to get injured by a suspect who is still not cooperating or giving up at that point, and they turn over and grab the gun and we end up having to shoot them again, or they shoot an officer. So this is the way that it should be done. Those officers did an excellent job of taking their time, making sure they moved up in a controlled fashion, and that makes it safer for both the officer and the suspect.
How do you think this would have played out if you didn't have the air unit
actively tracking Shepherd's in the backyard, noticed the gun in his hand. How might this have played out if that were not a factor here?
So the question was, how might this have played out without the overwatch of the air unit? And I don't know. I'm grateful that it was there, because that information was so valuable to those officers. And I'm just thankful that it ended the way that it did.
Can you just give us a prelude to what we just saw? How did you come to know to look in that area and pinpoint him with the area?
So the question was, how did we know to pinpoint that area? And that's all part of the investigation. They received intel. As you know, this shooting had happened well before this of Deputy Andre. And so this had been an active search going on for, I believe it was 2 days, looking for the suspect. So it was a matter of following up on tips that we were getting from the community. And so we value those things. And ultimately, that investigation came through both the marshals as well as some LMPD detectives that were getting information.
Did the suspect show any signs of life when officers finally approached him?
The question was, did the suspect show any signs of life after the officers approached him? I don't believe so.
Do you know how many times he was shot?
I don't know how many times he was shot. It was more than once.
What kind of gun did he have?
As far as I know, he had a handgun. I don't know the specific make and model.
This
So
is a suspect, I mean, you mentioned obviously, they were hunting for him for days. This is somebody that critically injured another law enforcement officer. So how do you approach a situation like this, trying to catch this person? How do you train your officers to approach somebody that they know is dangerous, specifically that had injured another member?
So question being, how do we train to approach someone who we know has already shown the propensity for violence and the willingness to take an officer's life or attempt to take an officer's life? And so this is part of it. We can train all the tactics in the world to make this safer, but this is really about mindset. This is about having people who are dogs who are willing to go out there and look for people like this. And I don't know if you can train character in that way. We have men and women on this police department who are willing to put their lives on the line in order to find bad people like this and get them off the street. And I'm very thankful for that. And our society is safer because we have people like that. So
what kind of narcotics did he have with him?
What kind of narcotics? I believe it was methamphetamine. So.
Will you be doing an autopsy for the immune system?
So that'll be all part of the investigation. I believe tox screens are pretty standard in these types of things. So at the end of the investigation, that'll all come out from the medical examiner.
Do you know if Deputy Andre is still at your health?
So Deputy Andre is still in critical condition. I spoke to with Sheriff Henderson earlier today. And all he asked is that we continue to pray for him and his family and continue to support them. It's still a tough time for him. And so, it's a tough situation, particularly on a small department like that agency. It's very small. They know everyone. That community is very close knit. And so this has hit them pretty hard. And so as LMPD, we want to make sure that we give them all the resources to support Deputy Andre and his family through this situation. And they know that they can call on us at any time. So,
could you elaborate a little bit on the shield that was used? We don't usually see that in the videos.
So the ballistic shield that was used is a bullet-resistant shield. We have those within different units on the team. On the department, and so officers will utilize those in different situations to make sure that it's an added level of protection that can be offered in certain situations. So they have their benefits and drawbacks, having used them and carried them plenty of times. So, all right. So we'll move on to the second officer-involved shooting, which occurred in the 1300 block of Cypress on Sunday, January 5th. So on Sunday, January 5th, in 1300 block of Cypress, LMPD responded to a homicide that occurred in that block. After they were on scene for a while, the suspect returned to the scene, and it ultimately resulted in an officer-involved shooting and the suspect being taken into custody. The officers involved are all 2nd Division officers, Officer Stoll, Officer Faust, and Officer Cosgrove. Now I'll turn it over to the video, which will have the description of the incident for you.
What you're about to view is body-worn camera footage from the officers who discharged their firearms. In accordance with LMPD procedure, the officers were placed on administrative leave. The LMPD Public Integrity Unit is the lead on the investigation. Upon completion of its investigation, LMPD will present the case to the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office for a final criminal disposition. A copy of the investigation will be turned over to the Kentucky State Police for peer review, and a copy will go to the Louisville Office of Inspector General. Please be advised that this statement is a preliminary account of what our investigation has revealed thus far.
On Sunday, January 5th, at approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 2nd Division officers with the Louisville Metro Police Department were dispatched to the 1300 block of Cypress Avenue on multiple 911 calls for service on a report of a shooting. When they arrived on scene, they found a female suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Officers attempted life-saving measures until EMS arrived. The adult female victim was transported to the University of Louisville Hospital, where she was pronounced deceased by medical professionals. Through investigation, officers were able to identify a suspect and began canvassing the immediate area. At approximately 3 o'clock, just 2 hours after the homicide, the suspect returned to the area and was located in the rear alley in the 1300 block of Cypress Avenue. As officers approached the suspect opened fire on officers, firing several shots. 3 LMPD officers returned fire, striking the suspect. The suspect fell in the alley and was taken into custody by officers without further incident. The suspect's handgun was located in the alley.
Officer, he's in the back. He's in the back. He just showed me he's in the alley. He said if y'all.
He's been taken out on radio. One of the witnesses out here saying that he's in the alley behind the location that we're at right now. Sitting in the alley south of our location, close to Woodland.
Okay, that's the she's in the alley behind the location to the south, close to Woodland. We just got a call for this service.
Shot fired.
You going down the alley now? That's out. Down the alley. I got his best. Go ahead. Ten floor. Subject down. Where's the gun at? What? It fell out of my hand. It fell out of your hand? Where's she hit? Where's she hit?
In the front seat. In the front seat.
Check down that way for the shares if you got it. Somewhere back there. I got him.
If this is a 40, it's mine. This is a 40 Smith and Wesson, that's me.
we're done for now.
No, two back here. Suspect's gonna have one bullet wound, left butt cheek.
One bullet wound.
No. He said it fell out of his hand.
Black is silver.
Go ahead.
So again, this is remains an open investigation, and we'll update you with more information as it becomes available. The full videos will be put on YouTube following the press conference, so you can separate the three officers' videos. Again, very, very grateful that no one else was hurt. We're obviously dealing with another situation with a murder suspect in this case, who basically committed cold-blooded murder and then came back and shot at officers. And so, again, very thankful to these officers, very grateful that no one else was hurt. I think when you look at these two videos back to back, it does give you an understanding of what officers face. And there is a big difference between what patrol does and what some of these other units do. When you look at what CID was doing, they were out there looking for this guy. They knew exactly who they were going for. These patrol officers thought they were holding traffic points to keep people out of a crime scene, thought this situation was over and the danger came and found them. And they still responded in a moment's notice appropriately. That's pretty awesome that we have, these officers out there with that type of mindset to be able to respond and change what they were doing at a moment's notice in order to protect people and take this very dangerous person into custody after the fact. So I'll open it up to questions this time.
Chief, whenever we saw investigators looking at the scene initially, not only do you have to put those pieces together, but also there was about a bunch of snow on the ground, and we saw them having to take different measures. Can you just talk about how the weather added to how difficult this might have been and how they adapted?
Yeah, so the question was, how did the weather impact that investigation? And I think you all can appreciate having to go out there and do your jobs in this type of weather. So you can only imagine looking for something as small as a shell casing or a bullet fragment in the snow, and the inclement weather made it much more difficult. But between the officer's perspective on things, the suspect's confessions to this, and all the other evidence that we had, I think we still are able to conduct this investigation in a quality way. So.
What are some of the ways they adapted? We saw them using metal detectors and things. Can you just kind of speak to that a little bit?
Well, they use metal detectors often on these scenes in order to locate shell casings and things like that. As far as some of the specific adaptations that PIU or homicide had to go through, that would be reserved for them. So thank you.
Why was the suspect still placed in handcuffs despite being down?
So the question was, why was the suspect still placed in handcuffs despite being down? And I think that's a homicide suspect. And you can see he was not incapacitated by any means. He continued to shoot at officers until he was not capable of shooting at officers anymore. So we have a responsibility to keep ourselves safe. So we're going to secure a suspect like that.
So the officers who were responding, knocking on the door, they were canvassing the neighborhood initially?
I don't believe those officers were canvassing the neighborhood initially. I think those officers were just sitting on the scene to make sure that people stayed out of it. And something prompted them to go back up to the house. I don't want to get into the specifics with the ongoing investigation, but they were prompted to go back up to the house with that suspect who was in the back alley. So that's what happened, is that suspect was in the back alley of the house. And so as they rounded the corner, the suspect started shooting at him.
And that house was where the initial shooting?
So the initial shooting, I believe, was actually out the sidewalk area in front of that house. So I'm not going to go into the specifics about the connection between that specific home and the initial incident, but it was in front of that house.
And the connection between the home and the suspect?
Right. I don't know the connection between the home and the suspect.
Are you able to share any details about that woman who, when he opened the door, she said he's out there in the alley?
No, not at this time. I'm not. That's still part of the ongoing investigation, and we have a responsibility to protect that witness in this case.
The second time during the chase, there was a pause when they were chasing him after the first initial gunshots were fired. The second time, is that him firing first at officers again, or is it officers firing this gun himself?
So he shot at officers again. Who shot first and all of that? It doesn't really matter at this point. He's in an active gunfight with officers. He's a murder suspect who's fleeing. So when you look at those Graham factors that we show on the screen at the end of every one of these, that's what that's about. It's about the totality of circumstances. And the first thing on there is the severity of the crime. The severity of the crime is as severe as it gets. This is a homicide suspect, murdered somebody in cold blood, returned to the scene and attempted to murder officers. This is not someone who can be allowed to escape that scene. We have to do everything we can to protect the public and officers and take that suspect into custody without delay.
So with that Graham scale, that would have officers think about whether or not they could deploy potentially non-lethals before gunshots.
So that Graham scale is the Supreme Court ruling of Graham v. Connor. And those are the factors when it comes into any use of force, not just an officer involved shooting or lethal force. And so all of those factors come into play. So the severity of the crime, the immediacy of the threat, the level of resistance, and any attempts to flee the scene are all factors that will change the level of force that is reasonable for an officer to use to take that suspect into custody. So, and understand that just because a lower level of force may be reasonable or would be effective, it does not preclude the officer to not use a higher level of force. That was clearly a lethal force situation. So,
What kind of medical service did the suspect receive, and where is the suspect now?
so the suspect is currently still in jail, and the medical attention that he received at the scene by officers is pretty basic. There's not much we're going to be able to do for a gunshot wound to the buttocks. But then he was transported to the University Hospital. I believe he was actually released late that night. So he didn't even spend an entire 24 hours in the hospital, that's my understanding.
Chief Humphrey, kind of off topic, but can you address how LMPD is planning to work with Ms. D. Wright, who the mayor just hired?
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll transition to other questions in just a second. I want to make sure that no one has any more questions about this.
Situations like these happening back to back can weigh pretty heavy on, officers in the community. What's your message to the community who are now seeing body cam footage of these two happening back to back?
Well, the message to the community is that you have a group of officers out there that are willing to risk their lives in order to take dangerous people off the street. And so we're gonna continue to do that. We're gonna do that every day. We're gonna continue to, look at these situations, evaluate these situations for how can we improve? What are the ways that even if we got these right, what are the lessons that we can learn to improve our next response? And so that we are even better the next time at taking dangerous people off the street and do it in an even safer way. So that's my message to the community: is know that you have people that are willing to go out there and do this work on your behalf. So.
Any indication of why they came back to the scene? Is that ever?
Yes, but that's part of the investigation. So.
Anything else on Cypress?
All right. Katrina?
Yeah, just if you could tell us how LMPD plans to work with Ms. D. Wright, who the mayor's office just hired to be in charge of community safety, please.
So the question was, how does LMPD plan to work with Misty Wright, who's in charge of the mayor's plan on community safety? And so you've seen our crime plan, and a big part of that crime plan is how we collaborate and cooperate with other non-LMPD entities within Metro government. And so she is really taking the leadership role on the non-LMPD side of community safety. So while we are coordinating a lot of those resources, she's going to help oversee and make sure that runs smoothly. And then there's obviously parts of community safety that are bigger than the things that LMPD are going to do. And so she's going to be involved in a lot of those programs and projects that are external to LMPD, but still have an impact on community safety.
Anything else, General?
One more question. I believe you were on a different news channel and you were asked a question regarding Lieutenant Stewart and the arrest when he arrested that woman who was in labor. And you said something along the lines of it being hindsight 2020, maybe that wasn't the right move. She's still on schedule to appear in court either today or sometime next week. Are there any plans to drop those charges or address that situation?
So the question is about the woman who was in labor who was not arrested. She was given a ticket. And in that situation, and just in general, when you're thinking about these situations, we are asking these officers to go out there and evaluate circumstances and situations that are very difficult and they're very sensitive. And in that particular situation, you're talking about somebody who had no medical attention at all, and that medical attention got to her because it was called for by the police in that situation. So while she said that medical treatment was being sought, it showed up because we asked for it. And so I think to me, that's one of the focuses that people have missed, is that she got medical attention for both her and her baby because it was called for by the police. And if he had believed that she was legitimately in labor, which you even hear him say it on the video, that she wasn't using that as an excuse to get out of an enforcement action after she had already been warned many times and he had had previous interactions with her, he wouldn't have written her that ticket. I don't think any of us would have. And so there's no problem in recognizing that. And I've spoken with him several times, and that entire unit, I need them going out there and doing that work. It's important to the city that work is done, and it's done in a compassionate way, and it's done well. And so I expect them to continue doing it, and I'm supportive of them when they do. And there's always the ability to learn from situations and do a little bit better the next time.
Anything else, y'all? Okay, let's wrap up.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good afternoon.
Hey folks, thanks so much for staying with me. We wanted to bring you that stream in its entirety. Louisville Metro Police releasing the body cam video from 2 officer-involved shootings. The first one that you saw, I know someone asked if this had to do with the Orange County suspect in Indiana. Yes, it does, but you probably have to rewind the stream to view that portion of the body cam video. So they released that footage showing the officers responding to the suspect, Austin Shepers. He was accused in shooting Orange County Deputy Zach Andre 4 times on January 3rd during a traffic stop on State Road 56 and US 150. So we saw the different angles of officers responding to that scene. Shepers was found in that area here in Louisville. Police had been alert to look for him, and they responded to that incident. So also we saw video from another shooting that involved Louisville officers on Sunday, January 5th. Officers found a woman who had been seriously injured in a shooting on Cypress Street. She later died at University Hospital. And Joshua Miller was later arrested and charged with her murder. So Miller was the boyfriend, according to police, of the victim. He had returned to that scene, as you saw in that video, and he's facing charges for her murder. Okay. I think we had 2 reporters on this story from what I could hear, Wave News reporter David Mattingly and Alina Noakes. But just showing you that video to kind of see what officers are having to deal with, how they respond to that sort of thing. So thank you so much for staying with me. I know that some of that video was graphic to see and hard to see. So thanks for your patience. And if you want more information on the background of these shootings, just click on the link on this website on wave3.com. Somebody posted, are you going to post the video? The video is included in here. So you'll just have to rewind to see it, what police have released to us. So it's there. You'll just have to stop this video that you're watching and scroll back. So thanks so much for staying with us. Have a great day.